Says you were live. Let's just wait here for a second. All right, folks, welcome to the show. We have a little bit of a different show in store. There is no camera news today, so we won't get really into a whole lot of that. Today is going to be like more of a the podcast type that I kind of had envisioned for the channel. Basically, one of the major reasons why I think I do YouTube, why I think YouTube is so important today, is because I think that in 2021 and beyond, 22, and to be honest with you, this has happened years ago, and I'm just now getting on the train, so I'm behind. I'm not, as far as I'm concerned, I'm behind. I'm the one who's behind, and I'm getting back on track now. I'm getting on track now. But I think it's come to light that in the last several months, or probably almost a year now, a year and a half really, since the COVID thing kicked off, almost 2 years now, it's a really smart idea to have more than one source of income. And I think YouTube, again, YouTube is no guarantee that you're ever going to make any money on YouTube. I don't make any money on YouTube right now, but that's also has something to do why I'm doing shows every single night here, and I'm talking about different things, and I spend a lot of time trying to come up with ideas to make videos on, and doing some research and things of that nature. And I personally, I've got a job, I've got a retirement check, so I currently have 2 sources of income. You could technically say sort of 3 sources of income, because I'm working on some investments that have already had pretty decent returns. I'm in the cryptocurrency investing right now. And I've got some plans for the future, but I think having multiple sources of income is a really great idea, because here's the one thing that I can tell you right now. You go to the grocery store, all the prices are higher than they used to be. You go to the gas station, the prices are higher than they used to be. You go shopping for literally everything, anything you want, the prices are higher than they used to be. But you know what's not going up? My paycheck's not going up. So the days of having the single source of income, I think, is because the people that run these companies, and I'm not saying anything bad about the company that I work for. I think the company I work for is pretty good. But they don't really give a damn. The people, they're making money, they don't give a shit about you. You know what I mean? And you might get a yearly pay raise. That's about it to keep up with inflation, but the inflation still continues to go much higher. So I think in 2021, I think starting a YouTube channel, now I understand that some people are shy to get on camera and stuff like that. Yeah, it's hard. It's 9/10 of the battle is put yourself on camera and put yourself out there. But what's the worst that could happen, really? I'll tell you, there's 2 things that are the worst possible things that can happen on YouTube. One is you don't get any views. You don't make any money. You put videos out, you don't make any money. But here's the thing: when you get started on YouTube, now I'm going to talk about some cameras tonight to get started on YouTube. But honestly, the best camera that you can start a YouTube channel with is the thing that's in your pocket, smartphone. Is it the best option? You can always start with a smartphone and then work your way up to something like this at some point, or even the ZV-E10 right here. That's $800. Probably cheaper than your smartphone was. I don't think there's a risk in starting a YouTube channel with your smartphone and then building your way up to that. I mean, if you start making money, then you can upgrade to a camera. Some people might want to jump right into a regular camera, so that's what this episode's kind of about. The 10 best cameras to make YouTube videos. Now, this is in no particular order. Obviously, like I said, you start with your YouTube with your smartphone. This thing here isn't too bad to start with either. Little GoPro. This is the GoPro Hero 10. I don't think you can really go wrong with starting your YouTube channel with this either. The thing is, man, is if you've got some sort of interest, or you've got a life that is maybe you want to share, I guess, or just honestly just to document what you're doing, it's never a bad idea. And I think, it's just it's good business. If you run a business, if you own your own business, I think it's almost irresponsible, in my opinion, to not have a YouTube channel. I mean, it's free advertising. One thing that I'm very interested in doing is, if I was going to stay in the United States, one thing that I would personally do is probably start to go to small businesses, and I would help them create some sort of YouTube channel. Most of these small businesses all have Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. But a lot of them don't think that YouTube is also that. A lot of people still think that YouTube is, cat and dog videos now. But a lot of people are creating businesses out of this. And I think that's, I mean, it's a shot in the dark. But one, if your company, if you advertise your YouTube channel on your store or whatever, your business, obviously you'll get traffic that way. And then, for your business, that could be another source of income, just AdSense alone. And then, whatever else happens from that. So, I mean, I think having a business, I think you should have a YouTube channel. If I was going to stay in the United States, I would probably put together some sort of presentation to explain. And I would go to different businesses and be like, hey, do you guys have a YouTube channel? Oh, no, we don't. Why would I have a YouTube channel? Well, why wouldn't you have a YouTube channel? That's the question you should be asking. And I would bring in my equipment and I would film, come up with some ideas with the business owner and stuff like that. And we'd create a nice little YouTube channel for them and have free advertising where that business could also make some money off of. So let's get into this. 10 best cameras for YouTube in 2021. Now, I have 4 cameras in front of me right now. And these are probably the first 4 we're going to talk about. This is no particular order. These are just 10 cameras that I think will be a really good setup to start a YouTube channel with, or to get a camera. If you want to get a camera to make YouTube videos, I think this will be a good setup. Let's get into this. So obviously the first one here is the Sony A7C, which I have right here. Sony A7C. Why? And we'll talk about why I think these are great YouTube videos or YouTube cameras. Obviously, what makes a great YouTube camera? Great image quality, a fully articulating screen, so you can a lot of times your YouTube channel, you're a one-man band. You don't really have a film crew. I don't have a film crew. I'm literally the only person in this apartment right now. So I want to make sure that I'm properly framed. I want to make sure that I'm in focus. So having a fully articulated screen definitely helps that, because you can point it forwards and you make sure that you're in focus and things of that nature. So, bam, fully articulated screen. It flips around. You can see yourself, right? Very good. What is great about Sony cameras? The great thing about Sony cameras is if you don't know a lot about cameras, you can pull this thing out of the box, put an SD card in it, charge the battery, and hit record. And you're going to have a really good image quality without really having to mess with it too much. Something like a Canon camera, I think Canon cameras you could probably get the best overall image quality out of, but you really got to kind of have to know what you're doing. You got to get into some settings and stuff like that, set your aperture, your saturation and sharpness a little bit. You have to change it because a lot of times they're oversaturated and oversharpened out of the box. At least the Canon cameras that I've used in the past. And if you adjust that stuff, you can get a really good image quality. But right out of the box, now the difference with the Canon system is that the menu system is a lot easier. And we'll get into talking about that a little bit too. But I think Sony cameras, and not only that, you've got the most reliable, in my opinion, autofocus system. Canon's got a very good, reliable autofocus system as well. But, I just, you can't really go wrong with either one of them. But having this Sony system, I mean, it's really amazing. Super easy to use these cameras. The stabilization in Sony cameras is definitely something I would say is probably a downfall when it comes to Sony. If you're a vlogging channel, you may not. There's other better options, I think, for vlogging than a Sony camera, because the stabilization. The full frame cameras are significantly better than the APS-C, in my opinion. But not everybody's going to want to spend $2,000 on a APS-C camera. Hey, Darryl, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat here again today. I did go to his YouTube channel yesterday, and matter of fact, he's got some pretty good stuff. And if you guys are here watching, you should definitely visit. And I will leave a link to his channel down in the description box, so you can check that out. After I do this video, I'll put a link to his channel. He does some really good cinematic stuff on there, as well as some really cool, good workout videos. If you're looking to try to get in shape, you know, he could definitely help you out. I did check out a bunch of his videos yesterday, and it's he's pretty good. I'll tell you what, he's pretty good at what he does. The cinematic stuff that he did, man, that's something I would always like. I need to learn. It's something I would definitely love to learn. Maybe I've watched tutorials on how to make cinematic stuff, and maybe it just doesn't click to me, or maybe they just don't teach it the way I needed to be taught. But I cannot do quite what other people get to do. Maybe the gimbal will help. A 10-bit camera, so I can color grade a little bit more, will help when I get to the Philippines and stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, really like his stuff, and you should definitely go check out his channel. But back to the Sony system, the A7C. I think this is a great. I think this is designed. So I talked about yesterday, and there's a third Sony camera that might be announced next year. And here's what I'm thinking. This is totally out there, just kind of something that came to my mind. A ZV-E10. This with a full frame sensor. Yes, that's exactly what this is. But I think maybe a little bit, you know, more high-end spec. Maybe that new 33 megapixel sensor might be in here, but with some 10-bit and some sort of capacity video. Maybe. I think Sony is going to try to get away from the alpha numbered cameras. I think obviously we got the ZV-1, we got rid of the RX100 series. I'm pretty sure we got rid of the Alpha 6000 series of cameras, and we've replaced them with the ZV-E10. I do think that in the future you'll see, you know, higher versions of the ZV-E10. I think this is just the entry. This is equal to what the A6000 was at one point. And I do think that what you're going to see in the future is something with IBIS in it, something that's going to kind of compete with, well, not compete, but go be the next iteration of the A6600. But I could see them also making a full frame version of it. You know, content creators creation is a form of camera use now. And I've said this in the past, like several times on this channel, that I think that video runs the camera world. If it wasn't for the amount of people getting into YouTube and getting into making videos, and I'm not just saying YouTube, because wedding videography, real estate videography is becoming a huge thing now. People don't just want photos of their house when they're selling anymore. They want a video of it. They want to, like, you know, a more interactive, I guess, way of seeing it. And same with the people with weddings. You know, when I was growing up, you never saw a videographer at a wedding. Now almost all of them have, you know, tons of them have videos, you know. Something that I am considering doing when I get to the Philippines is, I'm sure some people, you know, with COVID, and people are still kind of a little bit scared of COVID. What about live streaming one? So that if you can't make it to the wedding, you can at least watch it, you know, not a bad idea. I've live streamed some events before. I live streamed a promotion ceremony. Before last year, I did that. That was kind of fun. I had a really terrible internet connection, and it was really shitty, the quality of it, but, you know. But yeah, the A7C, I think, is a really great starter camera to get a full frame look. And I definitely, I think I can pretty much tell the difference between a full frame look at an APS-C or any kind of crop sensor. It's just sharper, crisper, cleaner image. And I think the A7C is a really great camera to get started with. Number two, and again, this is in no particular order, and I'm just kind of going through the cameras that I own right now, because I think that the cameras that I've chosen are really great content creator cameras. That's pretty much the reason that I chose these cameras. Panasonic S5. What's great about this camera? You got internal 10-bit video. If you want to go buy an Atomos Ninja, wow. Whew, that was a hell of a workout, I bet. 3-hour standing live stream. Yeah. With a FS. Wow. That's probably a pretty heavy little setup right there. That was probably a hell of a workout. Yeah, live streaming is fun. I think with the A10 Mini, I could probably set up cameras on tripods and stuff like that, which make it a little bit easier, and I could just run it that way. But I mean, in a run and gun type situation, it might be a little bit more difficult. Obviously, I'd have to get some longer HDMI cables, and we're gonna get into another camera here in just a little bit, where I'm actually thinking that I might pick up 1 or 2 more of these, just because we'll get into why. But anyways, the Panasonic S5. You got your 10-bit. You hook this thing up to an Atomos Ninja if you want to go that high into it and get 6K video out of it. This thing's a mini S1H. It's got pretty much all the features of the S1H. It doesn't have the stabilization quite like the S1H does. It has the same sensor. It has the same 24 megapixel sensor. You know, and you can get a lot of the same frame rates and resolutions and bit rates and stuff like that as the autofocus system on the Panasonic S5 is great, but it doesn't necessarily compete with the Sony or Canon system. The thing is with the Panasonic, I think that it's just slower than the Sony system. But once it's locked on, it stays. I've never had a really issue with the locked on. We'll get into some other cameras where I have had issues with it locked on. I've had issues in the past with older Panasonic cameras that wouldn't stay locked on. Like I used to have a G7 and a G9, and they had some sort of minor issues. But I love the Panasonic system. It is a great system, and I don't think you can really go wrong with the Panasonic system. I think it lacks in lenses. We've talked about that on the show a few times. And I mean that, yes, it lacks in lenses, but what it does have in lenses, they're really good lenses, albeit expensive. But there's some Sigma counterparts that kind of, I mean, for instance, like the 24-70 f2.8 Panasonic lens is like $2,200, but the Sigma lens, which is, I've seen a few videos where they compare, and there's really not much of a difference. You can't really even tell. It's $1,100. It's less. It's half the price. You know, so I have the 24-70 f2.8. Love the lens. It's gonna be more for my, work that I'm gonna do down the road. I definitely won't get rid of the lens. I love that lens. I do want to get a couple of different filters for it, which I'll be purchasing here in the very near future. But an 82 millimeter filter, so it's not going to be cheap. I want to get one of those K&F Concept. It's like a dual filter. It has a variable ND filter with a circular polarizer on there as well. So a polarizer can kind of take out like the shine on a water or something like that. It can it will give you almost better dynamic range in a way. And then the ND filter obviously can kind of, better for long exposures, better for outdoors. So you can keep your 180 degree shutter. Again, I haven't really talked about the 180 degree shutter on here, but whatever frame rate that you're shooting in, say you're shooting in 30 frames a second, your ideal shutter speed would be 1/60th of a second. So if you're shooting 60 frames per second, you'd be around 120. What happened there? Okay. So yeah. Panasonic S5. ZV-E10. I think this is the perfect little entry level. What is going on with my computer? All right, there we go. ZV-E10. Perfect little entry level camera to start YouTube. Do it all kind of thing. Master of none. Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, a Black Pro Mist would be really badass too. I would love to have one of those. Yeah, I'd like that idea. I've been watching what's his name? Camera Conspiracies. He's been using those, and I like the image quality he gets when he changes it and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. I've been interested in one of those for actually quite a while. I just haven't bought one yet. I do want to get a series of filters and stuff like that for the Sigma lens, because that's going to be more of my, like I said, down the road. I'll be using that lens quite a bit more on the Panasonic. I would love to have that lens also for this camera, but I'm going to use my Panasonic for more of the professional level stuff down the road. I'm going to, into the 10-bit video and stuff like that, put it on a gimbal, and do some really good stuff with that. I'm really excited about the future for that. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with this ZV-E10. And to start, it's not going to be the greatest camera in the world, but like I said when I started the show with the A7C, one great thing about Sony cameras, again, is that you can pull it out of the box. If you don't really know that much about cameras, the standard picture profiles and stuff like that are really good on this camera, and you don't really have to do anything in post to make it look usable, I guess. Canon has great cameras, but one thing that I've noticed about Canon cameras is out of the box, they're kind of oversaturated and over-sharpened. So you're going to have to get into the settings a little bit deeper to get it. I think overall, Canon has one of the best image qualities. My personal opinion is that Panasonic has the best image quality. That's my personal opinion. That's just the way I feel. I mean, everybody has their own, teach their own kind of thing. I just like Sony cameras. They're just easy to use. When I want a camera to pick up and just get a shot right away, and not have to really fuss around with it too much, I don't think you can really go wrong with a Sony camera. I've kind of talked myself out of Sony cameras in the past, and I've hated myself for it. I've gotten rid of them and then went to other companies and was like, nope. And I always came back to Sony for some reason. I thought, well, you know what? Canon's better than Sony right now. Let me go buy a Canon. You know what? Sony is better. I was right. I just like the way the images look right out of. I mean, obviously you can go in and tweak the image. You can get a log profile on these cameras and be able to get higher dynamic range. Color grade it the way you want to. Yeah, exactly. So being able to color grade and stuff like that, and the Sony log footage, especially on the full frame cameras, is really good. And I would love. We'll get into my dream later in the episode, but yeah. The sleeper of all of this, folks, this is what you are seeing right now and what you've been seeing for the last several episodes. This is the camera that I shoot this show on. It's the Panasonic HC-X2000. Why do I shoot this on this? Well, you see on the top there's an XLR handle. This is an XLR mic going right into the camera handle itself. One good thing. This is a 4K 60 10-bit video camera. Yes, it has a very small sensor in it. It has a very small sensor in it, so it is what it is. Has a 1/2 sensor, 8.29 megapixels. But again, you get 4K 60, 10-bit video, 120 frames per second slow motion. And the great thing about this for live streaming is it's got a full-size HDMI input on it. So you don't have to worry about the tiny little micro HDMIs breaking off into your cameras, which seems to happen just about everybody. And I can run continuous power to this. So I could do this live stream all night long and I never have to worry about anything, It doesn't like heat up or anything. It doesn't overheat. I'm not actually recording anything right now. I do have media SD cards in there. It does take regular, well, you want to try to go with UHS 2 cards at least, which I've got in there. So when I do record, again, 10-bit video, so I can go out and record. It does have a Cinelike D and Cinelike V on it, just like typical Panasonic camera recorders, so you can get a little bit more dynamic range out of it. Again, it's a small sensor camera. The shallow depth of field on it is not going to be the greatest in the world, but I think for a live stream, there's not a better system out there. And this is the camera that I'm talking about that I may buy. There's another version of it that's a little bit cheaper, the HC-X1500, which is like $1,700. It doesn't come with the handle. That's the only difference. Oh, I really need one handle. It's got 2 XLR ports on it. It does have a light built in. So if you want to do some what do you call it? Like journalism or something like that, you can have that. It does have a live stream capability to be able to live stream directly from it, but I think you do have to have some sort of Wi-Fi connection. I imagine you can probably just use your phone when you're out and about if you wanted to go live. So that's not a bad idea. So there's so many features this camera has. It's got a 24 to 600 millimeter zoom. So if you want to go and like, be a creeper, you could do that too. It's kind of weird, but I've thought many times about. So one of the reasons I bought this camera is that I was looking into a telephoto lens. When I get to the Philippines, I'll be on the beach a lot, and I might want to, there's a lot of surfing and stuff that goes on. Maybe I want to record some of that at some point. There's a lot of surfing areas. Now, I'm not a surfer, but maybe perhaps I'm doing somebody else's video and they want me to record them. That is something I've considered in the past. There's a lot I might want to zoom in on, and I thought about buying a telephoto lens, but when you have an A7C and a Panasonic S5, and you want to look at telephoto lenses, there's not a lot of options that are of a cheaper variety. And I didn't see myself wanting to spend $1,000 on a telephoto lens or more that I was not going to use all that much. Now, this camera I'm going to use, this HC-X2000, I'm going to use it for a lot of different things. I use it now every day for my live stream here. I think it's the perfect little live stream camera. Yeah, I could hook up my Panasonic S5 and get a definitely better image quality. When the first time, a couple times I did this, I did have the S5 working, but I was like, I have a specific purpose for the S5, and I wasn't really using this, and I do have a specific purpose for this. And I would love to have the second one for a second angle or something like that, or maybe I have eventually in the future, I would love to have, guests on the show, which I can do now. If through Instagram or Facebook, I could do a live video and I can show you my screen and stuff like that. And that would be cool to do that kind of thing. And it's something I'm going to probably do in the future. But I would also have like guests in the studio as well. It'd be kind of cool to have a second camera and have a guest in the studio, and we could just have this podcast, and it'd be cool. And in the future, that's exactly what I plan to do. So I was looking at buying a GH5 Mark II. And, $2,200-$2,300 for that and a lens. And I was like, well, $1,600, I can get this thing, and it's built-in lens. It's built-in everything. I already got the XLR for this. I don't need the other XLR. Having a second camera to do things like that in the future, because I might do other types of podcasts as well on my other channels. My CJ Abroad, I might go on somebody else's channel. I may, get there and meet a couple of folks, and we might start a whole nother channel that we just do a regular podcast on. I think podcasts are also the way of the future kind of thing. Like we talked about earlier in the episode about trying to have multiple streams of income. A podcast on YouTube is not a bad idea because a lot of people watch them. Matter of fact, I don't even have music on my phone anymore. I have an iPhone, right? And I don't use Apple Music. I just use podcasts. When I'm at work, I have these bone conduction shockwave headphones, so I can still listen to people talk, but I can also listen to my podcast in my headphones, so I can still do my job and get everything done that I need to get done. And I can listen to podcasts. I don't really listen to music all that much. I try to learn something while I'm at work, I suppose. And matter of fact, I have to look it up again, but there's like a cryptocurrency one that I'm going to start listening to. I want to say it's a CoinMarketCap podcast. CoinMarketCap. I'm into cryptocurrencies now. I bought a couple today, but this is not a financial thing, so you do whatever you want with that. Another source of income. I think, I've got a version of 401k through the military. That's something you can never touch. I like the idea of cryptocurrency investing and other types of investments that you can pull your money instantly and have access to it if you need it. You know what I mean? Having money in investments you can't touch. I mean, long term, sure, that's cool. Yeah, exactly. Podcasts, I've been watching the Joe Rogan podcast for years, or listening to it until they went over to Spotify, and then I kind of quit listening to it because I didn't really want to pay for Spotify. Considering Apple was free, and there's plenty of podcasts on Apple that I still listen to, so it's perfectly fine. But doing something like this. This is why I do this show. This is a podcast. It's a live video podcast. I don't record the audio and upload it to any other podcast thing. This is the only place you can see it. And I enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun interacting. And I like the podcast live because I can have people in here. We can interact. They can ask questions. I can ask them questions. We can have discussions. And I'd much rather have just a discussion with a bunch of people. You know what I mean? So yeah. Fujifilm X-T4. There's a lot to like about this camera. I actually used to own this camera. And this has a phase detect autofocus system in here. And it is worse than Panasonic. That's one of the major reasons I got rid of it. And I don't think Panasonic has a bad autofocus system. I personally don't. I think the Fujifilm system is a bad autofocus system that I've used. But there's a lot to like about this camera. It has pretty good IBIS, actually really damn good IBIS. Stabilization in this camera is excellent. 4K 60, 10-bit video. The color profiles that are in this camera are just amazing. For photography, this camera is even better. The image quality out of the X-T4 is just unbelievable. One of the major reasons I didn't like this camera was because there was nothing. I'm not saying they have bad lenses, but there's just nothing in their lens lineup other than maybe 2 or 3 different lenses that kind of get me excited, I guess. Like, these are lenses I got to have. Like, if I'm thinking about, hey, buy a Fujifilm camera, what lens would I buy? I can't really point you in any direction. I would say the 16mm 1.4, but I just look at that lens and I think Sony's got a 16mm 1.4 that you can connect to this camera that's $100 less than half. Yeah, definitely. So I'm thinking about having some. I want to have live guests in the future. I definitely do. Once I kind of grow and I have some more people, and it would be really awesome. I think maybe Darryl might want to even come on. I don't know. Maybe we can discuss that in the future. He's been on the show watching quite often. It'd be kind of cool to have somebody else to interact with. And I'm pretty sure with this A10 Mini, I can probably connect it to my iPad and, I don't know, use Instagram Live or Instagram Video Messenger or Facebook Instant Messenger or something along those lines. It's definitely something we could do. And I think that'd be really cool. I would like to have guests on. And the great thing about what I'm doing right now is it doesn't necessarily have to be a camera guy. It could just be somebody who likes to do YouTube videos. I'm going to put a link to his channel in the description. Once I'm done, I will put a link to his channel for sure. So you can go check his channel out. Like I said before, he does some really great stuff. He does some really great cinematics, like freaking awesome cinematics. You need to go check his channel out. I mean, the clarity and just the camera movements itself were just spot on. And he also does some very informative, like, workout videos. So if you're looking to get into shape, he can probably, teach you a few things. That's one thing great about YouTube. If you can teach somebody something, that's 9/10 of the battle right there, folks. That is 9/10 of the battle if you can teach somebody something, because that's what a lot of people use YouTube for nowadays, to learn something. The GH5 Mark II. I am super interested in this camera for a few different reasons right now. For the same reason I like this camera that I'm doing this on, the full-size HDMI, the 10-bit video option. I love Cinelite D profile. Probably my favorite profile to shoot in. Now, I don't do this channel in Cinelite D because I can't edit the color. This is just a standard profile that we use here. And the reason it's kind of bluish now because of the purple lights in the background. And I'm only using, you probably may have gone back and seen the video, but I did some unboxing of the lights that I'm using. Elgato key light mini or whatever, key light light or something like that. I have 2 of them. I really like these lights. They're pretty awesome. They kind of connect to your Wi-Fi and you can control them by your phone. Really cool lights. These are just some like cheap things I found on Amazon behind me, also controlled by my phone. But GH5 Mark II, a few things that I like about this camera. One, it uses the same batteries as the S5, so I've got a ton of these batteries already. So that's obviously a huge thing. But a full-size HDMI. I think the one kind of downfall for me on this camera is that it's got a micro HDMI. And doing the live streams, that's kind of a bummer because I have this connected all the time. That's one of the things I like about this is it's here. I don't have to set up. I don't have to do nothing with it. All I do to set my YouTube videos up right now, and this is one of the things I like about doing the live stream, and this is why I think live streaming is so good these days, because it just makes the streamline. You don't have to edit nothing, for one. Yeah, this would be a perfect little B cam. Actually, yeah, for what I've got. I like the fact that it takes the same batteries and the full size HDMI, and I love the picture profiles on Panasonic cameras. They're just my favorite. I mean, even the standard picture profile is good. There has a flat picture profile that you can use that you could put a little color to. It's not going to be quite as dynamic range as a log profile, but there is a log profile on here as well. And then the Cinelight D, Cinelight V profiles are also really nice to work with as well. You can get the colors to really pop with those when you just add a little bit of saturation, you know. And I really love the way the colors look, and it's quite easy footage to work with. You also get 10-bit video with this, 4K 60, and it will charge via USB Type-C, so you could plug it in. And ideally, if you've got a power source, could run a live stream or recording of some sort of pretty much all day, as long as you have media. Like if you're recording and then live stream, I can go and go and go and go. I could do this all night. My current setup right here. I mean, I'm not running off any battery. I mean, there is a battery in it, but I'm not running off battery. I'm running off mains power, and it's all good. The GH5. There are dummy batteries for this. One great thing about Sony is that there's just so many third-party accessories that you can buy. Also, that's something I haven't talked about yet. There are so many third-party accessories that you can buy to dummy batteries. You know, that's $30. You can put a dummy battery in this thing and run it all day long. And it's great. They don't really have a lot. This battery was new when the Panasonic S5 came out, so I haven't really even. I've seen some, but on Amazon, and I think they were like in China kind of thing. So it was something that was going to be kind of long-term getting, and I didn't really trust the source. If it doesn't say Prime on it, I don't really buy it when it comes to Amazon, because one, you're going to pay arm and leg for shipping, plus you just never know when you're going to get it. So I've been interested in the GH5 Mark II. I'm kind of going back and forth between this and another in the 1500, because I want a second camera. Like, again, because eventually I want to do where I bring somebody on through the computer, you know, through Messenger or whatever we use, video messenger or something like that, so we can communicate that way. I need to really kind of figure out all the details on how to actually do that, because it seems like the A10 Mini, it has microphone on for each XLR or for each HDMI, but for some reason when I connect it to my computer, that doesn't seem to work. You can't really hear the audio from it, so I have to kind of figure that whole piece out. That may have been because I was using a weird HDMI cable and I have a different one now. Could be, but I definitely will play around with this and kind of figure all that out in the future. But also, I would also like to have a second person in studio and have a conversation like in studio. Maybe at some point I have 2 or 3 people in here. I watched a couple of podcasts, you know, they have a couple of people in studio all the time. It's the same people, and they also have guests. Those are interesting. Podcasts are such a great thing now. The Canon R6, I don't think you can go wrong with the Canon R6. Again, like I've talked about in the past, I've had a few Canon cameras, and the one thing with the Canon cameras is I think you can get the best overall image quality with a Canon camera. And this camera's, you know, got a pretty hefty price tag on it. You can kind of interchange this with the A7 IV as well. And I'm saying these 10 cameras because they're physically out and you can go buy them now. The A7 IV is, you know, it's been released, but you can't get it till the end of December. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if it's well into January or maybe even well into sometime next year before you can actually get, you know, the common folk, I guess, can actually get one of those cameras. By common folk, I mean the people that aren't big time Sony users on YouTube and they get them for free. I think it's going to be kind of difficult to get that camera. That's actually kind of plays into why I didn't pre-order the camera. Now, there's other reasons, because I've got these two cameras right here, which do everything the A7 IV can do. But I'm leaving the United States on January 10th. So I think that December 30th to January 10th, that's the time frame that I would have to actually get the camera. And I highly doubt that in that time frame, I will be able to actually put my hands on that camera anywhere in the world. So that's one of the major reasons I didn't buy it. And I know that when I get to the Philippines, buying that camera is probably going to be, with import taxes, like well over $3,000. So camera, honestly, my intentions when I'm ready to buy a new camera, living in the Philippines, I'll probably fly up to Korea or Thailand to buy a camera, because import taxes in the Philippines are unbelievable. In Korea, there's a place in Seoul called Yongsan Station. It's a train station, but in that train station, there is this massive electronics market, and it's like 6 stories or 7 stories, and it's one story that is probably like the biggest Curry's PC World or Best Buy that you've ever been to, and it's nothing but cameras. And then there's another floor that's the same way. There's nothing but cameras. And there's another floor that's like nothing but computer parts. And there's another floor that's nothing but smartphones. It's just a freaking massive electronics market that's there. And then you go like down the street and around the corner, and there's a whole nother one. It's exactly the same thing. And you can kind of haggle with them. Even with newer cameras, you can kind of haggle a little bit. And maybe you get lucky enough. And like that was like a camera person's dream right there. And I know like in Japan, they've got those too. And in Thailand, they've got a place called MBK Mall. And up at the very top level of MBK Mall is basically kind of the same thing. It's a little bit more structured there, where you'll have like a Sony store and a Nikon store and a Canon store, and it's all just right there, all the cameras. I don't know if it's a perfect affiliation, or an exact affiliation, I guess, but they do have like the logos. This is a Sony store, and you walk in, it's nothing but every Sony camera and lens that there is. The Canon store, again, Nikon store, Panasonic store. Awesome. And then you don't really have to pay like crazy import taxes at those locations. So when I'm ready to buy a camera again in the future, that's probably what I'll end up doing, because I mean, I'll take trips over there anyway. So the Canon R6, again, I told you, I think you can get the best image quality, but you kind of have to know a little bit what you're doing. I think out of the box, every Canon camera that I've had out of the box, if you don't really know what you're doing, the image qualities are kind of a little bit over sharpened and oversaturated. And I think that if you get in and can play with those settings a little bit, you can make the overall image quality really great. But again, out of the box, that's what the great thing about the Sony cameras. You don't have to play with it too much to be able to get a usable image. You don't have to play with it at all. Change your, whatever frame rate you want to use, whatever resolution you want to use, and hit record. Charge the battery, put an SD card there, and go. It's super easy to use, and it's a good place to get started. Fuji X-S10. Again, this is something we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday in the show, because there's going to be the Fujifilm X-H2 coming out, and they said there's going to be 2 different sensors or possibly 2 different cameras. They're X-H cameras. And I think what you'll see is something kind of similar. My theory, one of my theories is that you'll see something similar to this. You'll see maybe an X-H10 or an X-H20, if whatever they want to call it. And it'll be a more kind of, a lot of camera companies kind of come out with the same camera over and over again, but with just new names. So I think I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look at this camera right here. This is the ZV-E10. There are currently 5 other cameras that you can buy that are exactly the same as this. You can buy the A6100, and in many ways exactly the same. The A6100, A6300, A6400, A6500, and A6600 are so very similar to this camera. I mean, one, neither camera is going to get any different really image quality. Maybe the A6100 because it doesn't have all the picture profiles that the other ones have, but right out of the box, again, if you just put it on standard picture profile, same lens, same shutter speed, same aperture, same ISO, you'll get the exact same image out of all 5 of those cameras. And this one, so 6 cameras, you'll get the exact same image. I could see something like an XH version of this coming out next year. Basically the same camera. We're going to call it a more video-centric camera, even though this one's pretty video-centric. Maybe it'll have different dials on it or something like that. More of the old, the retro style dials that are kind of notorious for Fuji. Again, like we talked about with the X-T4, there's nothing in the Fuji system lens-wise that really excites me. I did like the 16-80. That's a nice little lens, but the autofocus system on that lens isn't all that great. I like the 16mm 1.4, but I have a hard time thinking I should spend $1,000 on a 16 1.4 when I could spend $400 on one and just get a Sony system rather than a Fuji system. Yeah, I like Fujifilm. I love the image quality out of Fuji cameras. I love the picture profiles that they have. I love the features that they've got. This one doesn't. This is only 4K 30 at 8-bit video. But the X-T4, you've got 4K 60, you got 10-bit video in there. I mean, you've got all eye. That's a really, really professional level camera. It's a beautiful little camera, the X-T4. This one's not too bad either. Now for my dream camera. If money was no object in any way, shape, or form, also if Sony just, made some, because this has been out of stock since I don't know, June. You pretty much have not been able to get this camera anywhere in the world for the last probably 5 or 6 months. Unless you want to, you go to eBay and, I've got one. Yeah, I do. Sell you to for $6,000. I got to make money on this. I have a good and you have a need, and I need to make money. I wouldn't pay $6,000 for this camera. I'd have a hard enough time paying $3,500 for it. I wouldn't. It's really what it comes down to. But my dream camera, this is, to me, when it comes to making YouTube videos, when it comes to do any kind of video, professional level video, obviously you want a cinema rig if you want really, really professional level video, but this is the holy grail as far as I'm concerned when it comes to making YouTube videos. If you want to make YouTube videos and you want the very best of the very best, you go buy yourself a Sony A7S III. This thing is amazing. 4K up to 120 frames per second, 10-bit, 422 video, great stabilization in there. Best autofocus system in the game. 16-bit raw output, HLG, S-Cinetone. I don't really like the S-Cinetone, but it's something they talk about. I think the dynamic range in S-Cinetone isn't all that great. And I think still using a log profile is still your best bet. But when this camera came out and I saw all the videos that were, if you go to iJustine, and the video that she made on this camera was I'm just sitting there I need this in my life. And yeah, I could probably sell everything I own and go buy this camera, but I like to have more than one. I don't know. $3,500 is a little bit out of my price range. I hope to one day that it's not out of my price range. But this is the holy grail, folks, in my opinion. It doesn't get any better than this. This is the dream. If I was living the dream, I would own one of these. And then the trusty A7 III. I don't think you can go wrong with an A7 III. Still a great camera. Darryl, I think he had mentioned that he has an A7 III. I think he might maybe trying to trade it in on the A7 IV. I don't think that's a bad option. If you can get a decent amount of money for it, you said you got 900 something pounds, or they offered 900 something pounds. That's It's pretty shitty. Unfortunately, I wish they would. It seems like when you go trading cameras, like probably, prior to COVID, it seemed like the going rate was about 2/3 of whatever as long as your camera was in really good condition, it seemed like it was 2/3. It seems like now you'd be lucky to get half. You could buy a camera right now and then walk down the street to the next camera store and trade it in, and they'll give you half. That's just the way it is now. And that kind of sucks. But it is what it is. And I still think the A7 III is a great little camera. I mean, a lot of people for the last several years made a really lot of great content using this camera right here. This was honestly, I think at one point the holy grail when it came to making YouTube videos. Now it doesn't have a fully articulating screen. That was kind of the one major downfall. Probably the only reason I never bought this camera was that it didn't have a fully articulating screen. I just need that for what I do. Not having it doesn't work for me. I had the A6500. That was one of the cameras that I used to own, and I made a lot of content with that, but just got so irritating that I had to have some sort of other contraption to make sure that I was in frame and I was in focus. A monitor or some sort of mirror thing that was on top of the camera. And I didn't really like that option. It wasn't really a good option to me. But overall image quality out of this, again, we talked about earlier on several different occasions. There's so many options when it comes to Sony, and it's so hard to get away from the Sony system because the other companies just can't compete when it comes to Sony right now because of like third-party lens options. I've talked about this in many episodes before. Say you need a 35 millimeter lens. We'll just, get a nice round number, 35 millimeter lens for a specific project, but it's not going to be something that you're going to use every day, but something you're probably going to throw in your bag and pull it out once or twice a year, something along those lines. When it comes to the E-mount system, if you need a 35 millimeter lens, there's probably like 20 of them you can choose from. All price ranges, ranging from $200 up to like $1,400 or $1,500. So if you need a super end, if 35 millimeters is something that you use every single day, if that's the focal length that your go-to at all times, you can go with the 35 millimeter G Master lens. That's $1,400. You get the best image quality possible out of a 35 millimeter lens. If you were going to use it once and probably throw it in your bag and damn near forget you even bought it, you can go with the Tamron 35 millimeter F2.8, and that thing's like $200. You can go with the Samyang 35 millimeter 2.8. That's $200. You can go to Samyang 35 millimeter 1.8. That's only $350. Now you got a 1.8 aperture, and it's still quite cheap. Comparatively to like Canon RF mount, their 35 1.8 is like $500 something. And I've used that lens before, and it has an autofocus system. It's a good autofocus system, but you can hear it from like a half a mile away. It's quite loud. I thought it was quite loud for I think it's an STM lens. It might not be. No, I'm pretty sure it is. Pretty sure it's an STM lens. I heard that same with their 51.8 for the RF is quite loud to autofocus as well. But having all the third-party lens options, Sigma, Tamron, Samyang, you've got Viltrox makes some E-mount lenses now that are autofocus. I'm probably missing one or two, but having the complete lens lineup for several different companies, like Sigma, for instance, if you have Sony E-mount camera and you need a 24-70 f2.8, you don't want to spend $2,300 on the G Master. You can spend $1,100 on the 24-70 Sigma lens, and you got a pretty damn good lens, and it's only half the price. The Tamron 28-75 f2.8, that's even less. That's only like $900. There's a new version of it now too that's only $900. 17-28 is a great lens as well. We've talked about that on that lens. it's a great lens. There's so many options. The Sigma 14-24 f2.8, you know, that's half the price of the. That's actually significantly less than half the price of the 2.8 12-24. You know, the 12-24 2.8 Sony lens is almost $3,000, and the 12-24 f2 14-24 f2.8 Sigma lens is only $1,300. So the options when it comes to Sony lens wise just can't be beat by any other company right now, and it's going to be a long time before anybody catches up. First off, these companies need to sell their lens mount, make it available so people can make lenses off of it. Now, Canon RF, they do have a couple of Samyang lenses, but Samyang has also discontinued those lenses. They're not making them anymore, even though they did make an 85 and a 14 millimeter. They made the 14 millimeter 2.8 and the 85 millimeter 1.4, but they quit making them. They're not making them anymore. So if you wanted that 14, I think the Canon R6 for a vlogging camera, the Canon R6 and the Samyang 14 millimeter 2.8 would be a pretty good little setup. And it, you know, under right around $3,000, I suppose. It's a little more expensive, but for a really, really great setup. But yeah, that's the show, folks. 10 cameras we talked about tonight, 10 different cameras. We talked about how I think having multiple sources, A7 III needs to be the most. You're absolutely right. We've talked about that on the show. I think you are hitting the nail right on the head there. I don't understand why Sony has kept that price of the A7 III, even though the A7 IV, and maybe it's just because the A7 IV isn't available yet. Perhaps that's what it is. I mean, it's out. It's been announced. You can pre-order it now, but nobody's actually got it in their hands, right? December 30th is supposed to be the actual like ship date, apparently. Granted, chip shortages and stuff like that. Who knows how many people are actually going to get it on December 30th? Kind of a bummer they don't have it before Christmas, because I imagine some people probably wanted to buy it for Christmas presents. I need those people in my life that want to buy a $2,500 camera for somebody for Christmas. I'm taking friends applications. But yeah, it's kind of a bummer. I think that, you know, when the A7 III came out, I think there was a pretty good price drop in the A7 II. Now, what you might see though is, you know, like the A7 II for, I don't know, 6 or 8, 10 times a year, they would drop that price to like $1,000. You could often get that camera for $1,000, a full frame, you know, mirrorless camera for $1,000, the A7 II. So maybe you'll see another huge drop in the A7 II, and then the A7 III will be around. I think the A7 III should actually be around $1,500. I say that because this is a newer camera, and if you want to keep the A7C at $1,800, I think in this, you know, basically the same camera, a little bit better. You know, the A7 III's got a few things that are better. A7C's got a few things that are better. Fully articulating screen is one major thing, in my opinion. You know, the A7 III's got dual card slots, and this one doesn't, and a better IBIS system, better EVF. But I still think with the A7 IV being out, I think it should be more like $1,500 for the A7 III. Even though I do think that's still a very viable camera. It was on my list tonight. I think the A7 III is a great camera to own. But yeah. And we talked about earlier in the night, you know, I think the way of the future is to have more than one stream of income, as many streams of income as you can possibly get. And I think YouTube could be one of those options. If you have some sort of interest, if you have some sort of message to pass, something to teach, you know, maybe you could, a live video podcast, maybe you can just talk for hours. It's not a bad idea to start a YouTube channel. I think if you own a business, I think it's, like I said, I think it's irresponsible of you to not have a YouTube channel. One of the things that I would do personally, if I was staying here in the United States, is I would probably go to small businesses and explain to them how they need a YouTube channel. Because most of these guys, they probably have Facebook, they probably potentially have Instagram as well, but a lot of them don't have YouTube channels, or maybe they do, they just don't really upload on it. Maybe, you know, buying a camera seems intimidating. Buying, you know, uh, getting in front of the camera may seem intimidating. But that's something where I could kind of like build some confidence into the people. And, you know, they're the ones that are the experts. They run the business, right? So, I mean, uh, they're obviously passionate about what their business is. So you might as well, you know, depending on what it is, you know, I would probably go around to some businesses around here and be like, hey, we could set you up a YouTube channel where you can get free advertising. I will provide the equipment. I don't want anything from you until you're making money off of it. Another source of income. Having multiple sources of income. Now, currently, like I work in a factory right now. That's my normal day job. I work in like the supply chain of that factory, and I can go to the grocery store and I can see that my grocery bill goes up every month. I can go to the gas station and see my gas bill goes up every month. Everything you go buy from any store right now, prices seem to be going up everywhere you go. No matter what you want to buy, everything is more expensive now. But you know what's not going up? My paycheck's not going up. And I'm late to this train, I can tell you that right now, of having multiple sources of income, having investments, having side gigs, having a YouTube channel. Now, I don't make any money in this channel yet, but a daily grind and hammer out videos and interacting and doing these. And that's one of the major reasons I bought this A10 Mini, because this A10 Mini was probably the best investment in camera systems that I've ever had, because doing the live videos is so much more convenient. Not having to edit anything, being able to continuously make videos every single day if I wanted to, is such a great thing. Makes doing YouTube a whole lot easier. Plus, in the future, I do intend to do live stream events and things of that nature, and be able to set up, you know, multiple cameras. It will be really awesome in the future. I'm super excited about that. And I just think, why not? Many people in the past thought, why should I have a YouTube channel? Now I'm thinking, why don't you have a YouTube channel? I think, you know, and in some cases, like, I mean, like what Darryl does, like, with the cinematic stuff, if you're like as good as him, and there's a lot of people that are really good at it, I'm just not one of those people. Um, you don't even really need to tell a story. I mean, the quality of his video, and it is telling a story, right? If you watch his video, it is telling a story. But if you really just watch it for just the overall image quality, it's amazing. If you're not watching it and realizing what the story is, the overall image quality is really good, and the whole thing is put together. The music goes really well together. I mean, the thing is, it is really awesome. You should definitely go. Like I said, I'll put a link. Let me finish the video, because when I get done with the video, I always go through and I put chapters in there, so you don't have to, you know, if you're here for one specific thing, you don't have to wade through all the nonsense of the entire podcast. Sometimes I do just kind of ramble on, and I understand that, but it's fun. I like doing this. It's a good thing. So anyways, I will be here again tomorrow night. Hopefully. I'm really enjoying doing this. There's no news tonight. I checked all the camera rumor sites. There's no news. So I usually will start off the episode with some news, kind of talk about what the channel's about, so that I have, you know, kind of grab your attention, I suppose. And then after that, I get into the news, and then we get into, you know, talking about what we're doing. And we had a good show tonight. Thanks for everybody that came into the chat tonight. If you see me looking over here, I'm looking at the chat. But if you see me looking over here, I'm on my TV back here. And actually, the chat comes on the TV faster than it does over here, which is kind of weird, because this is the actual live stream. But you know, it is what it is. So, anyways, I hope you all have a great night. Thank y'all for coming in. We'll see you guys in the next video. Later. Panasonic announced.